We're here today with Anisha Sagar,
Hello.
Head of Property Management.
Yes,
Hey,
that's
Anisha.
me. Hi.
And my brother, Carl Alsop,
Hey.
COO.
COO.
Yeah. And today we're here to talk about a very important subject, which is managing a property, managing the asset, and someone taking over the maintenance, management, payments, and pretty much every headache as a landlord. And this is where someone like Anisha steps in.
Yes.
Is it safe to say property management is the most thankless job in the whole property part of the cycle in terms of what you do? Because a lot of what you do doesn't get seen.
Yeah, so we're a very unseen part of the business because we're that person in the middle mediating between the landlord and the tenant. So for us, we're the people that are pushing, making sure that you're going to get your rental on time, you're going to have your maintenance done, you're going to have your tenancy renewed. So yeah, it is a very thankless, I'd say.
Let's start from the top. Property management, what is it? Because very often people say to me, I don't need a property manager because
I'm managing myself.
I'm managing myself, or I've got an annual maintenance contract. So what is the difference?
And why would someone need it?
Why would someone need it? So
And what is it?
What is it? Yeah.
Start with
So
that.
property management is we are the middle person to look after and save you time and take away the hassle of looking after your property. Now, a lot of people say, actually, I don't need it. I've got a little man running around, or I've got an annual maintenance contract. So they'll do everything. Actually, the reality is you need that professional company to manage that tenant and manage that process, from negotiating your rental increase, making sure you get the right tenant into the property, banking your checks on time into your property. For example, I have a rental property. I get my checks at the 26th of every month. I don't hear about any of the maintenance. I don't have the stress or the hassle of having to look after that. Now, there's a little bit of discrepancy of what an annual maintenance contract is. An annual maintenance contract is just preventative maintenance. So it's not actually looking after that tenant, giving them the ease of they have someone to talk to, be able to report any maintenance and be able to report any issues. It's just simply a preventative maintenance.
Okay. So let's talk about some things in real life scenarios that maybe people don't know and understand. So I'll tee you up for this one so you can give the answer to this.
Okay.
Check-in, check-out reports that property management do on a property.
Yeah.
What happens with the deposit in the event that there is no check-in, check-out report done on a managed property?
You have no recourse. So if you have no check-in or check-out report, you have no recourse against that tenant because you have no evidence of how it was handed over, how it's handed back. So therefore, you're going to have to return that whole security deposit.
So in a real life scenario, really, if you rent a property and someone smashes up the walls, he could say to you, I didn't do that. And there is zero evidence to show what condition it was given in.
Yeah, and you don't have any way of claiming at the rental dispute centre if you don't have that inventory report. So at Allsop, we obviously provide the inventory report. We do a really nice video inventory for our clients, but if you don't have that inventory, there's no way you know. Like a tenant, we've had landlords who have said to us that actually my property has been handed back in a state, but I'm having to give the whole security deposit back because I have no inventory.
So someone not using a property management company would typically have to do this themselves.
Yes.
Can be quite time consuming depending on the size of the property.
Yeah.
To do a check-in, check-out and inventory report.
Yeah, so actually I was thinking back to about 7 years, and this is what most landlords who don't have a property manager do. They'd get a checklist, a piece of paper, they'd walk around, and I remember we used to do this. We used to have a big camera and we used to walk around and take pictures. That can take 3 to 4 hours.
How many pictures did you take? So I remember the conversation saying, Anisha, it would be, I remember you sent one for me, one of my properties.
138 pages.
Pages, not 138 photos. So I would get this, and I remember sitting down and go,
did you read it all?
No.
No.
There's a good Anisha, but who's going to read 100? Oh, that spoon looks like it's in its place. So.
But do you know, like, when Dubai is a little bit backwards in terms of inventories, because when I was in London, when I was doing property management there, they would have the iPad, they would be recording everything, you'd sign it off. It was very, in terms of like how advanced London was in comparison to Dubai, it was totally different. But here, people get a checklist and they'll
Crazy.
take the big camera. So we had to also change to make life easier for tenants,
See, the
for
biggest
landlords.
thing for me with property management, we talk about this. We only talk about one aspect here, which is
Yeah.
the inventory. But the biggest thing with property management over the course of that 12 months is the amount of time.
Yes.
Time is the most valuable commodity in life. You can't buy it,
Yeah.
you can't get it back. So your job, if you're a professional landlord, you've got 2, 3, 4, 5 properties. That is when really a property manager becomes truly valuable, because if you're one person trying to manage 2, 3, or 4 properties, it's a huge drain on your time.
Yeah.
It's not far from a full-time job.
You
is it
become
really?
the deflector, really. That's the purpose of it. I mean, if you think about it like this, whoever buys properties on a professional level to rent, who wants to receive a call at 10 o'clock at night to say their cooker's broken, their oven's broken?
Can you change the lights?
Can
But,
you change
but
the
they
lights?
don't want to. They want the ease of having someone do it for them. And I've seen over the last year, since COVID, people have got a better perspective that they want to use their time more efficiently. They don't want to be wasting their time speaking to the tenant on a weekend, or dealing with very small issues.
Here's one for you. So we talked about the inventory. This is only one very small part of the whole
Yes.
property management thing. What about if you're a tenant? Do you think tenants prefer to deal with the property management company or their landlord directly?
That's very controversial, because majority of tenants do want to deal with a professional company. If you're from Europe, you're used to having a property manager, and here in particular, it's very difficult to be able to communicate with landlords because
They've got their check.
they've got their
They've
check,
got their one check rent payment.
but
yeah.
different languages.
But also, as well, not just that,
Yeah.
they've got a job.
Yeah.
They've got their life. So the response times are,
Or they're in a different,
Middle.
we have landlords who are in Mexico, we have, in the US. So being able to contact that landlord is going to be very difficult, or even in the UAE because of response times, like you said. So a tenant most likely would want to deal with a professional company, being able to deal with their requests.
So you touched on before about technology,
Yes.
which is, we're massive tech
Yes.
geeks. That's what we want to call us.
Yes.
We love it. We love probing
Yeah.
and testing. We use something called Happy Tenant and Happy Landlord.
Yes.
Can you tell me about what happens if you are a tenant and what if you're a landlord using the software that we use?
Okay, so Happy Tenant, we obviously looked at a solution to make life easier for our tenants. So now we have Happy Tenant and Happy Landlord. With Happy Tenant, all tenants can submit a service request, so they literally can take a video of their issue or a photo of the issue. It will ping through to us. We will give them a call and book out someone to go out to the property. They can view all their documentation. They can see when the rent checks are due.
So it's digitalised the whole complaints process of any issues
Yeah.
that you get.
And I think in the UAE, everything was digital. There was a digital transformation, so we had to follow suit. So we had to give, we had to be more transparent with our clients. We needed to give them more accessibility. So this was part of introducing to make life easier for landlords.
Do you know what, as well? People's lives now are sad, whether it's sad or not, people's lives are on their
On their
mobile
phone,
phone.
yeah.
If someone comes to me and asks me to sign something, I'm like, oh my God, how are we
Yeah.
still dealing in the time of paper? And equally, like all these, files at home, like everything's now either in your phone or in your
We've
cloud
literally, as a
drive.
business, we've removed most of the original files that we have to digitalise it. I don't sign anything unless it's a digital signature, unless it's a developer that has to get a signature, unless it's a check, which is just a frustrating thing.
So Happy Tenant's super convenient for tenants.
Tenants,
What about
yeah.
the landlord side?
So that's the most brilliant part, I think, because landlords can now approve maintenance requests from Happy Landlord. So for a landlord, you want to be able to quantify how many approvals you've made over that year, what you've spent on maintenance, to be able to see your expenses. Happy Landlord now allows our landlords to be able to quantify what they've approved and how much they've spent on their property. Whereas before, as a landlord, you'd have to trail through all your emails and have a look at what actually you've approved. So time consuming. We all know you may get thousands of emails a day. So how are you gonna find that?
What I love about Happy Landlords, obviously you manage my properties.
Yes,
I think
we do.
You should manage yours or
Yes.
not?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And what I love about it is you go on there and you can see how much money you've spent.
Yes.
But you can see when your rent checks are due.
Yes,
you can
you
see
can.
copies of
And
your
if they've been
checks.
paid.
Yeah, if they've
And
been
you get
paid.
notifications the day that it's due.
Yeah.
it makes everything renting a property very easy. And that's not selling, that's me speaking as a landlord.
Yeah, I think for landlords, they love it because they're able to get notifications when their rent checks are due. They're able to find the documentation. Like you said, everything's now digital, so it's all the documentation on Happy Landlord. So it's ease of access. They don't have to go through all of the emails to find where's that document, where's that moving report, where's that approval, how much have I spent on that expense, how much is my cash balance, how much is in my wallet. Everything's on Happy Landlord.
Everything's how much have I spent.
How much have I spent? Yeah.
Okay, and the last interesting point I want to talk about in property management that I wanted to highlight with you is something that happened to me again on one of my properties with Emma, who is our head of renewals on new properties. So she will look after a property when it's rented. She would go and renew the tenancy.
Yes.
And one thing that I found very interesting from a managed to non-managed unit is Emma called me and she said, "Hi Lewis, how are you doing? Your property, I see it's rented for 170.
Yes.
I was like, okay. She goes, "I can get you 190. So what do you mean? You can get me one? Yeah, I've looked at the evidence. We've done before we've gone to renewal. We've done a survey on what's rented. Would you like me to go to the tenant and ask for more money?" I was like, "Yes, please." She went and did it on my behalf, called back, and they got a new tenancy at that price. That's massive.
It's huge. So we have the rental index calculator, which is available to us to see what increases are available. Now, if you don't have someone managing your property, you may miss out on that rental increase. You don't have someone to negotiate with the tenant and obviously the landlord. Having obviously our renewal coordinators is really, really big for us because they're able to negotiate the increase if it's available, but also they're able to follow through the whole process for you to make it very efficient and very smooth.
Well, it's awkward, isn't it? I mean, if you think about like me and you renting off each other and you go, "I'm paying 170, and I go, "Well, Nisha, it's worth 190. There has to be a buffer between two parties if you want to really get into the nooks and crannies of negotiating, and that's where we step in.
The biggest thing for me with property management is tenant retention.
Yes.
So it's all well and being finding a tenant and securing the right rent year one, but if they're a good tenant, they're paying regularly, you want them to stay as long as possible. So the property management firm improves speed of communication to make sure things are done, plays a part in making sure things are remedied as quickly as possible. But equally, they're proactive in making sure that the renewal process is as easy as possible. So for that percentage you may pay over the course of the year, it plays a part in keeping the tenant a little bit longer, but also could play a part in actually helping you increase the rents over the years. Yeah,
so a lot of landlords, forget the rental increase. They forget that there's a 90 days. So if you want to make any changes in the terms and conditions of the contract, you have to inform them 90 days. We do it 120 days before. We make sure we look at the data that's available to us because we do have access to that data of what's been recently rented. So we can say to the landlord, look, let's push for that increase because the market is such. So let's say if that tenant does leave, which we don't want them to, we want our tenants to renew with us and stay with us, but we want to get the landlord the best price for the property, but also have a tenant as quickly as possible if it is going to be re-rented.
What are some of the no-nos out there? Because obviously Dubai is massively fueled by properties and lots of landlords out there, and lots of people doing it themselves, or maybe have a driver or whatever, do bits and pieces of them. What are some of the things that you've heard or seen, or you think, do you know what? Don't do that. Whatever it might be in terms of where they might need some help with a property manager. Obviously, inventory is a big one, so making sure you have an inventory, which again we can handle that part.
Bank transfers because it's not secure here. So a lot of landlords decide they're used to having bank transfers, so they say to the tenants, "It's fine, don't worry, bank transfer it to me." They don't have no checks, so they have no form of security. We won't ever let a tenant move into a property with bank transfers. It is backwards because if we look at, let's say, the UK, you have standing orders and direct debit, so people are used to that and think, it's fine, but you don't know what situation could change for that tenant. So I think that's a huge no-no.
Checks written out to someone else.
Yes.
POAs, which obviously we make
sure. So we make sure, so let's say if a check's written out to someone else that we don't know who it is, that you're writing out a check to someone random, you don't know who that is. We control that process for landlords.
What about dealing with maintenance companies and make sure you're dealing with the right company that doesn't, let's say, cut a wire in somewhere they shouldn't do? Because there's lots of maintenance companies and lots of some good ones and lots of bad ones.
So dealing with the wrong maintenance company, and we've realised that over time that you need to deal with where there's quality assurance of the works that have been done. We can do that for clients. So picking the right contractor, and we've kind of divulged into that with obviously also home maintenance, which is big for us because we've realised there is a gap in the market and there is a lot of bad contractors which landlords and tenants are picking. So they could do one wrong thing in that property and it could cost you, let's say, tens and thousands of dirhams.
So also home maintenance was introduced because speed of doing jobs, making sure we can kind of drive costs down a little bit from the owner's side as well.
So because obviously we don't have transparency on terms of what kind of issues there are, contractors can charge what they want, and we don't know if that's actually the issue. We can visually check it and have a look. So also home maintenance was getting the speed of obviously quotes coming to us, getting speed of work. We found that contractors here are very slow. It's the way Dubai is, that everything's a little bit slower. Whereas obviously having also home maintenance means now that things are faster. We qualify, make sure we quote for the actual work that needs to be done. We find a solution. So we found a big gap in the market of contractors that weren't actually finding a solution. They're just temporarily fixing it.
And right now we've got 4 teams, 12 people running around Dubai doing jobs. And what's great is that also home maintenance is exclusive at the moment to our property management team. So not only are you paying for a service to make sure we retain the tenant and deal with all the issues, you're actually dealing with, in my opinion, already one of the best home maintenance companies in Dubai on a first impression so far.
100%. I think it's like one of the best maintenance companies, because I'll give you an example. I think we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago. Another maintenance company had told us that we had to replace XYZ parts to resolve this issue. Also home maintenance went in there and said, actually, no, that's not the issue. This is what it is, and got it resolved. And
saved them a lot of money.
A lot of money. Because he would have maybe paid that quote twice had we not said, no, we don't think this is the issue.
That's a big difference though, because obviously home maintenance is not just one business relying on one thing. Obviously it is a business and it needs to make money. However, not at the cost of charging people too much money. Our main job is actually to retain people, make sure they're happy, and not charge them too much money in the first place.
So that's what we want to do. If you're taking a property management contract with Allsop, you as a landlord, and any landlord, and I think both of you are landlords yourself, you don't want to be spending extortionate amounts on maintenance. You want your property manager to look, okay, is that quote exactly what it needs to be done? Whereas if you don't have a contractor, you'll just go, just get it done. Whereas here we're going to look at the quotation and say, okay, this is this much, we need to get this done. And also home maintenance will get it without ripping off clients at an extortionate amount.
What's the rental market and property management look like in the future, in the next few years? What do you think will be the biggest changes, in your opinion?
Biggest changes in the rental market?
Just what do you think might come? Well, obviously, it's all purely speculation, but what do you think's ahead of us? Do we think direct debits at some point are going to play a part in digital payments?
Yes, and I think there's talks of that. I think it's already happening in DIFC, where we now have to put the deposits in like a bond, like you do with the DPS in the UK. So I think obviously the land department, will move towards keeping deposits with the land department as well, and then maybe direct debits. So I think there's a big change of making things digital in the UAE.
Okay, so final question of the day before we wrap it up.
Go on.
Tell me how much it costs to use our services and what are the services in under 1 minute.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a standard and a premium service. Our standard service is 7% of the annual rental income. It's everything from tenancy renewals, maintenance management, looking after your property and making sure your rent checks are bounced. Not bounced.
No.
Rent checks are banked on time. Our premium service is 9% or 9,000 dirhams, and we include the POA service and making sure if there is any disputes, we can deal with that.
So in the event their rent check bounced, we would then attend the land department on your behalf to make sure we're acting on behalf of the seller, which has been
Massive,
it's a very time consuming.
And if you compare these costings compared to London, it's at least half least half of what you would charge at a property manager in London.
In London, I would charge 16 to 25% for a management fee. So here, actually, this is much, much cheaper than what anyone in central London would charge.
Good. Okay, well, thank you very much for attending the show today. Anyone that's interested in property management and wants any more information, feel free to slide into our inbox or hers or a phone number. WhatsApp, edit with
Don't go for
contact.
husband like that.
Thank you very much for watching. Cheers, guys.
Bye.